Hi guys, welcome back to Ask Ornstein. This week I'm joined by the Athletics Man City correspondent Sam Lee to discuss Sergio Aguero's future and their chances of signing a world-class striker this summer. If you haven't signed up to The Athletic yet, now is a great time with an offer of less than £1 or $1 a week. Just go to theathletic.com/Ask Ornstein. As always, the site is packed with great content, including our exclusive interview with Marcus Rashford, where the Man United forward analyses how he has taken his game to the next level. Support for Ask Ornstein is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com and use the code ASK, that's ASK, at checkout. Sam Lee, what a pleasure to have you on, and pretty good timing given what happened at Anfield on Sunday that propelled City into, I think, a 5-point lead in the Premier League title race, maybe even with a game in hand. So things are certainly looking up on the up. They seem to have changed fairly rapidly, now to the point where people are suggesting that they can't actually see City being stopped in this title race.
Yeah, City, if they keep up anything like what they're doing at the moment, they'll be very close.
Let's bring people to a story I mentioned in the Monday column. If they have or haven't read it, if they have or haven't listened to you and I on the Ornstein and Chapman podcast with Mark Chapman and Adam Crafton as well, we spoke first about Sergio Aguero's future. Now, he's into the final 6 months of his contract at City. As yet, there have been no talks or approach from City over a new deal. Aguero does have some other options. It's my understanding that Paris Saint-Germain and his fellow Argentine Mauricio Pochettino would like to bring him in as a number 9 potentially for next season. Barcelona, depending on what happens on their presidential elections, some of the candidates have mentioned bringing Sergio Aguero in to perhaps convince Lionel Messi to stay. And I'm sure there'll be plenty more for a player of his talent, just 32 years old, which, while some might think is getting on, others, especially with his injury record, others might see him as a guaranteed source of goals. Now, it feels increasingly like he might well leave, but City kind of want to judge how he returns to fitness before making any decision. And if they decide to go ahead with a new deal, I'm sure he would sign one. What is your take on the Sergio Aguero future situation?
There's a great relationship between the two parties, and that will make it easier for City to say, oh, actually, you are still brilliant. We can see at least another season where you're going to help us. But the reason why there's been no contact so far is that the last kind of message was get yourself fit and then we'll see. And he hasn't been able to get fit, unfortunately, in the last, whenever they told him that, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, 6 months ago. So that's the situation.
It's worth pointing out, I think, that despite all of the conversation about Aguero maybe being kept at City to entice his great friend Lionel Messi to the club, it's always been explained to me that if Messi was to be an opportunity that City looked to capitalise on, it wouldn't be related to Aguero. Yeah, we can't get away from their friendship, but these are two completely independent situations and
two independent blokes.
Independent blokes and on different scales of the spectrum, but it does sharpen our focus on who might come into City. And in the column, I brought to the sort of wider attention, for the first time that I've seen, the possibility of Romelu Lukaku. And if I'm able to explain it, that was just in presenting the fact that he is one of the options that City are considering for that really top level striker if they are to bring one in. I'm certain they're looking at the likes of Erling Haaland, Messi, as we've mentioned, the likes of Mbappe, and Harry Kane's been mentioned in quarters. He's not one that I could see happening. 1 for the fee, 2 for Daniel Levy selling to a rival. We've seen situations or speculation around Mbappe signing a new contract, or if he leaves PSG, going to Real Madrid. Messi is just really unpredictable and a unique case in itself. And so my understanding of the Lukaku situation is it presents an interesting option, a different style of play to what City have already. He is admired at the club. He doesn't have an agent who has had any sort of tension with the City hierarchy in the past, which has happened with Haaland and his representative Mino Raiola. Yes, Lukaku might be difficult to get out of Inter Milan, but they've got significant financial problems of their own, so that could influence things. He is under contract until 2024. He is 27 going on 28. And all we're saying is that he is among the options. City have a lot of options. So When we're looking at this top level striker, before we go on to talk about a potential auxiliary second striker, what are your thoughts on that sort of headline situation going into the summer?
I think they did a lot of groundwork last summer in terms of if they could have got their ideal players in, I think the money was available for them to do it. But they weren't really pushing the boat out for a left back. They spoke to Tagliafico's people early in the summer and then kind of left it. And then towards the end, because obviously the season started, they thought, God, we need a left back. They kind of had a little go again, but they wanted to get rid of Zinchenko, which, sliding doors moment again, because Zinchenko's been really good for them this season. But, they didn't really push it too much. They've been looking for a striker. I mean, for ages. Obviously, they're always looking. Part of that Gabriel Jesus kind of conflab I was having with myself earlier about considering getting rid of him, I think it would have been towards the end of the 18-19 season. They were looking at Luka Jovic when he was having his big season at Frankfurt. Ultimately, that didn't come to anything. He went to Real Madrid. But I'm kind of joining the dots in my head here. And that probably would have been one of those where it was like, well, if something happens with Jesus, maybe, then we'll go for this guy. And that was interesting because, Jovic is a big, strong number 9. And the other thing that brings us back to last summer and possibly this is they were looking for, this is complicated because they've got this A list of like a top name and they've got this B list, which we'll come on to. But within the A list, they had 2 different types. And I think City fans would have heard me say this before, but one was like a big, powerful, strong number 9, kind of like the names you've just mentioned, or more of a false 9, like capable of scoring loads of goals. And like, I think, they inquired about João Felix at Atletico Madrid, but he was just too expensive. They wanted the clause, which was about 300 million euros, maybe more. So they had 2 different types then when they were doing all this background work, seeing who was on the market. So what we can say in all these, maybe him, maybe this type, is they have been looking and they know they want to do something. And this summer, I'm not saying they're definitely going to do it because, they went into the window 2 summers ago wanting Harry Maguire. In the end, they didn't get him. They didn't get any centre-back. And they had to make up for it the summer just gone. So I'm not saying they're definitely going to get a striker, but I think they'll put much more effort into it this summer than they did last year, where they kind of looked around and thought, okay, that's an option, but we won't push it. I think this summer, probably by around now, April, May time, behind the scenes, hopefully we can find out, they'll have probably identified the one that they want and they'll have gone after him, tried to agree a deal with the player, and then, they'll put the squeeze on the club a bit. And like you say, with Inter, with their financial kind of situation, that's a classic thing for City. They got Ferran Torres for 20 odd million because of Valencia's situation. They're very opportunistic. They're very good at doing these kind of deals. Normally it's a buyout clause because they know exactly what they have to pay. They just go and pay it and it's done. No haggling, no messing around. If they can do that, great. And if a club's got a financial situation like that, that's a big tick as well. So they'll push very hard for a striker this summer.
I'm going to finish with a really quick question that has come to us from Fazil. Is bringing Messi in a good move for the club in the long run, given the wages he commands? Surely that's likely to disrupt the dressing room harmony and lead to a Barcelona-like situation where every important player asks for an improved contract. And we'll finish on that note because I do think it's a really interesting question.
Yeah, but I mean, the Barcelona type situation, it's only kind of unraveled recently, and I don't think that's Messi's fault. A Barcelona type situation, obviously, look, okay, you had Messi when he was 20, when he was 25, when he was 28, and he was a different player. But a Barca type situation is fantastic, generally. I mean, look, there is the element of kind of dressing room harmony and, player contracts. And we've not reported in the past, but it has been reported, and as far as I know, very reliably, that De Bruyne is a bit annoyed. I still think I need to say it a million times just so everybody goes away with this message in their head. De Bruyne is still most likely going to sign this City contract, but he is annoyed. And I've since been able to, since the story came out in Belgium, very well sourced. I can't say much more than that, but very well sourced, shall we say. I've been able to confirm it as well, that De Bruyne had been complaining to teammates at Belgium that City's offer to him, I think, is kind of worth, all things considered, I think slightly less than he's on already. But the main thing he was like, well, they can pay Messi. They're willing to pay Messi this amount of money, either last summer or this summer. And, I've been there and I've done this and I deserve a bit more. So he is a bit annoyed by that. So the relevance of that, of course, is to Fazil's question, would signing Messi cause problems? I mean, I'm sure City will give De Bruyne what he's worth, or what he feels he's worth. The other thing is, with the others, who could possibly say, well, you're paying Messi this, so I want this? Because City could justifiably, I mean, maybe it's not the best way to run the club, but they could justifiably say, it's Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
Like you are on very good terms. We've always looked after you very well. I mean, yeah, there is the potential for that. And the other thing is, it's Messi. Like, I want to kind of answer this in the selfish point of view, in the sense that I want to watch Messi at Man City. But then it's like, well, surely the fans who go to the stadium do as well. Like, you don't worry about the finances. You don't have to pay. Like, you don't have to manage the dressing room. And look, I can see the argument. Would it make more sense if you got this big pile of money to spend it on Haaland, who is, to be fair, he would probably, potentially play for City for 5 to 10 years, and he would have an instant impact, and nobody else would be able to get him, and it would be great? Or do you use that pot of money on Messi? I can see that, but only for Haaland, or only for Mbappe. Nobody else.
At this moment in time, I think you're right. If you get an opportunity to sign Messi, it's not one that you turn down, but it's still a big if. And I think that the sort of most immediate landmark on the horizon is the Barcelona presidential elections, because that will have a huge bearing on Messi's decision, and it will be his decision. And so I think for the time being, as far as I know, City probably take a bit of a backseat. Watch how that develops. I don't think they're preparing.
Which they've always done.
Yeah,
they've been ready and waiting, but they're like, let's see what happens. We're not getting involved in this personally, publicly. We'll just see what happens.
And that's the stage I think we're at. If it came that it was a deal that they could do, they would spring into life. And I think I will echo your sentiments that it would be absolutely amazing to see, but we're still a little bit of distance away from that yet. The only certainty in all of this is, my goodness, we're going to be talking about City a lot in the coming months and into the summer. We've covered a lot of ground there, and thank you so much for your time. Thanks for watching, guys. Head over to The Athletic for greater detail on all of this and more. Plus, you can hear Sam on our weekly Man City podcast, Why Always Us. I'll see you next week. Support for Ask Ornstein is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. The world is about to get a lot less hairy, because you can now buy Manscaped products and finally use the right tools for your family jewels, like the Lawnmower 3.0 electric trimmer with its cutting-edge ceramic blade that reduces grooming accidents and keeps you feeling smooth. Its battery lasts up to 90 minutes, so you can even use it for the entire length of a football match. Then comes the Weed Whacker, your essential nose and ear hair trimmer. Both products are part of the Manscaped Performance Package that includes a t-shirt, athletic boxer briefs, deodorant, toner for, yes, down below, a wash bag to keep it all together, and a newspaper. Why? Well, why not? Happy shaving!